Hi friends, hi, hello, how's it going today? Hopefully today finds you well. Today I am doing the next installment, my palette roulette series, in which I review a palette that is sitting in my collection, maybe collecting dust, because that seems to be the case these days, and coming to you, telling you about my thoughts, my impressions, my experiences with said palette, and then picking a new palette. Moving on to next week. I do this series every single Monday, so I hope that that sounds like something that you're interested in. And today we are reviewing the bPerfect Manifest Dream Big, or Dream Big Manifest palette, however you want to say it. It's weird because I'm not sure exactly how it's supposed to be said, but that is the palette that we're reviewing. For those of you new here, hi, my name is Donna. So happy to have you here today. I hope that you find that this is the perfect place for you to be. I am a lover of all things high-end, colorful beauty and self-care. I also am a district leader for Ulta, so I do work a lot with the brands. I get a lot of education on brands, and I'd like to bring you all that education. So you're going to find a lot of reviews here on this channel, a lot of makeup chit chat on this channel, and then sprinkled in with a lot of other things. I do a project pan, I do a shop my stash. I really just hope that you find that this is the perfect place to be, because I am going to be the one that tells you, you do you boo, you soothe your soul, you do what makes your heart happy, because that is at the end of the day all you have. And I'm going to be out here doing what makes my heart happy and what soothes my soul, and I hope that we can lock arms in this journey and do that together. So with that said, I do hope that you'll want to subscribe before you go, and let's roll into this palette. All right, guys, so this is the palette that we're reviewing today. It is the bPerfect Dream Big Manifest palette. And that's how I think it's said, because Dream Big is in the giant font and then Manifest is built into that Dream Big font in a gold lettering font. And I'll get closer so that hopefully you guys will be able to see it. This palette is beautiful. The packaging for the palette looks exactly like the palette does itself. I love that the packaging has all the information on the back of the box as well, so that you can see, you know, what kind of formulations you're looking at, how many colors are in the palette, and even the color story that is in the palette, which is just a smidge bit, you know, confusing. But I love the back of the palette. It says, bPerfect Cosmetics, Dream Big, Manifest, Vibe High, Dream Big, Be Unrealistic. I think that that is amazing. That's an amazing little mantra to have. Really, when it came down to it, I think that this palette spoke to my soul because of the grungy tones in the palette, which we'll get to, but also the multiple different formulations of shadows in the palette that you're getting. And then I got the palette, and I'm not exactly sure that I love all the formulations. So let's just start with, this is the packaging of the palette. You guys can see it's very iridescent. It is so gorgeous. All the faces and the eyeballs on the front of it. It does say Dream Big. It does say Manifest there in that Dream Big font, and the back of the palette looks like this. So it looks just like the packaging of the palette. The spine doesn't have anything on it. It is kind of a thicker palette, but not like so thick that it is annoying. And it actually suits functional system that you have for organizing your palettes, unless you're in a drawer. This is a pretty large palette. Stood on end, it is as tall as my face is, and put like this, it is rather wide, and it's still very tall. I would say though that it does have 35 shadows in it, and for the size of a Morphe 35 pan eyeshadow palette and this 35 pan eyeshadow palette, this one is quite a bit smaller. This does have 63 grams of product in it, which is 1.8 grams per pan. You open up the palette, it does have a very healthy size mirror. I actually did not find that I used that mirror, but mostly because this palette is so big that, you know, holding it up to utilize it is kind of cumbersome. But the palette does flip all the way back on itself. It doesn't stand up by itself though, so you wouldn't be able to use it as a like a vanity mirror if you're out traveling. The magnet on it is kind of not the best magnet, so I don't know that I would say that it's a great travel palette anyways. This is what the palette looks like. So the color story of this palette is rather kind of chaotic, a little bit odd, but also very, very pretty. I didn't see anything wrong with utilizing this palette, and I did utilize it a lot in like quads and then throwing an additional color in there. I typically use like 5 eyeshadows on a regular eye look on my eyes. So I would work in quads and then find a shadow that suited that quad also outside of that to just kind of buff everything in. And I didn't mind working with it in a quad like mindset, but you also can bounce around. There's a lot of like bounce around opportunities in this palette to find color stories that go really well together. This is a $34.75 eyeshadow palette on the Beauty Bay website, which is where I got it. It's also for sale on the bPerfect website, and it does have 4.3 stars on the Beauty Bay website with only 9 reviews, and it has 5 stars on the bPerfect website with 40 reviews. Again, bPerfect, its own website. Not sure I trust that 5-star review. It just came out not that long ago. I do believe that it launched in April, I want to say. It's still a rather new palette. I imagine 10 years down the road, 5 years down the road, 2, even a year down the road, it might look very different. I would say that I would put this probably in the 4.3 star rating, kind of lower on the 4-point spectrum, just because some of the formulations in here, and I know that you cannot see it maybe on camera, but it does, the pigments in this eyeshadow palette are irritating to my wonky eye that already has sensitivities in and of itself, but I also found irritation in the other eye that doesn't typically have a whole lot of irritation from eyeshadow palettes. That's not to say it's bad, it's just to say that I had a lot of irritation from some of the shadows that I used in this palette, so I would rank it a little bit lower on that totem pole. So as I said, there are 35 shadows in this, and there are 7 formulas within that 35 shadows. You're getting 19 mattes, 6 pressed pigments, 2 duochromes, 5 sparkly shimmers, 1 cream shimmer, 1 cream matte, 1 shimmer gloss topper, and they're all very strange. So when you first get the palette, there are 3 shades, this one, and this one, that are kind of like variegated in color. So they have like ribbons of another color running through them. Those are the cream formulas. So this one is your cream matte, this one is your cream shimmer, and this one is your cream gloss formula. This one is very, very strange. It just kind of moves around in the pan. The cream shimmer does fill the same way and kind of move around in the pan. They both feel very oily, but they are beautiful as far as color story goes. This one over here is just a topper shade, so it's not super pigmented. You're not going to want to wear it just as is on your lid space. This one is stunning. It is super, super sparkly, super, super shimmery, and I think that it goes really well in an eye look for lid space. I did try and put it onto my brow bone and inner corner with one eye look, and I felt like the oiliness of it, or the creaminess of it, I guess, really kind of hindered the rest of the eye look, and then it was kind of hard to pack another matte shadow on top of it. So those creamy shadows don't play well with the other shadows in the palette. They work really well on their own, but once you start putting other shadows with them, they don't work super well. And the cream base formulas are meant to be a base, or at least that's what it says on the back of the palette. So the brown is meant for a smoky shadow base, the white one is made for a shimmer shadow base, and then the topper is just meant to be a topper. So these two on the outskirts are meant to be bases for their subsequent counterparts, matte or shimmer, and then the top one is just supposed to be patted on top of any kind of eyeshadow. Which I thought was interesting, but I do still feel like I didn't need them to put that base in here. I wanted an additional shimmer or an additional matte, and if those don't function perfectly on their own, then I don't want them in the palette, right? The gloss topper is what it is. It is whatever. I do enjoy a topper on occasion, but it's just a really intricate formula that requires a lot of work because it's very finicky, and I just wasn't 100% impressed with it. I do think that they need to do a little more work on their cream formulations. There are 5 super shimmers in this palette, and those are 11 is this one here. Then we have Journey, which is this one. This is on my eye look today. We have Shrek, which is this one. Old School, which is this one. And Honor, which is this one. And I have to tell you, they are beautiful. These feel really soft in the pan. So this one is 11 and this one is Old School. They're just so pretty. I think they are also super soft, and they just melt into the lid space. They don't do anything to create texture. They're very, very pretty in an eye look. Let's see, Journey. Let me swatch that one for you. Yeah, they're just so pretty. This palette also has 2 duochromes. So the 2 duochromes are Manifest and Lily. So you have Manifest here, and then Lily is here. And those 2 were signified with kind of like the Huda Beauty cream shadows in the New Nudes palette that she had like those little like pieces in the shade that kind of looked a different color. They looked like chunks of something else in the shade. Those 2 were signified by that. So they did have some kind of like variance to what they look like in the palette so that you could point them out. I feel like all of the different formulas in this palette really do show up in the palette in a different way, which I very much appreciated. So this one here is Lily, and this one here is Manifest. So what I would say about these duochromes is I don't feel like they're duochromes. I do feel like they're pretty. I just don't feel like they have like that like shift to them that a lot of duochromes do and that we have come to expect with duochromes. I do feel like they're beautiful, and I do feel like they can look like this pink one specifically can look very pink in an eye look, but it also could look very almost periwinkle in an eye look, dependent on which color stories you're putting it with. But they don't have a flip to them at all. I don't see any kind of shift in them in and of themselves. So I'm not certain that I would have called them duochromes. I would have called them their sparkle shimmers that they already have, because I feel like they are right up there with that. And as a matter of fact, I feel like this one here, Journey, the one that's in my eye look today, I feel like has more duochrome to it than any of the shadows in this palette. And the pressed pigment shadows that are in here also I feel like have a little bit of duochrominess to them, but I just don't feel like those 2 did. All 6 of these pressed pigments are sparkle shadows, which always weirds me out because I do anticipate a pressed pigment is going to be a shadow that is a matte in my eye look, and I don't know whatever gave me that belief, but that's just where I sit with this. So your pressed pigments are Believe, which is this one. This is also tapped into the center of my eye look today. You also have Insta, which is this one here, Anne, which is this one, Bundy, which is this one, and Macaroni, which is this one. So these are the ones that really did irritate my eyes. And I guess this is the first time I've ever dealt with pressed pigments that really irritated my eyes. This Believe one didn't really irritate my eyes. That's this one here, because I only ever used it as like a tap into the center of an eye look shade. So it didn't really irritate my eyes as much as some of the other ones that I really did try and put like onto an eye look. This one is Insta. And I don't know if you guys can see it, and I'm going to try and get up close for you, but they're really, really chunky. And they have like a lot of glitter in them. And I think that that's why they irritated my eyes as much as they did. Not because of the pigmentation. Obviously, I think the pigmentation is what it is. I think it's beautiful, but I think it's the glitter that really drove my eyes batty. And then we have Anne, which is this purple one. And I'm going to show you my palette really quick because I just went over the top of that shadow with my finger very, very lightly, but dug into that shadow pretty deep. I think that you guys can see that. They're so soft. So you have to be careful with this palette, with those shades specifically. Otherwise, you're gonna pan these shadows really, really quick. I forgot to tell you about Benji, which is the yellow, and I did put the yellow into an eye look all over the lid. It was a beautiful eye look. Again, it's one of those shadows that really did drive my eyes nuts. So this is Bundy. This one is Benji. I mean, you can barely see that. That one is very, very sheer. I did get it packed into an eye look and it looked really good. And then this one is Macaroni. I definitely don't know that I think that those three, well, specifically those two last shades, both needed to be in this palette. The one thing that I could say that maybe sets them apart is Benji is very sheer. Macaroni is not. Has a little more opacity to it. So I guess just dependent on the yellow that you want to go with. Whereas Macaroni looks more like a gold foil and Benji looks more like a yellow as well. I would also say that all of them are very, very, very chunky and all of them irritated my eyes. So that's the pressed pigments. I don't think that the pressed pigments really needed to be in this palette, if I'm honest. I thought that their shimmers were so much prettier on an eye look than these were, and I didn't really see any need to use any of them unless you were using them as an inner corner. And with that said, that's where they bothered my eyes the most, was when I was trying to use them as an inner corner, because they were so chunky. They were so chunky and very flaky, and the fallout was intense. It was all over the place all day long with these shadows, even with a glitter glue. So the rest of the shadows in here are the mattes, and I love the mattes. I think the mattes are so beautiful, so pretty, really where this palette shines. I do think that there's a wide variety of colors that you can get out of this palette that are going to be great for any kind of eye look that you're going after. I think that if you stick around in this corner here, you could definitely get some really pretty spring and summer eye looks, and you stick around in this corner here, you can definitely get some very pretty fall and winter eye looks. I think that this is a palette that could suit a need for a everyday eye look and a like crazy, you know, weekend eye look for those of you who can't do color at work. I also think that this palette is really great for somebody who just wants to dabble in color versus straight up color, because there is a lot of neutrals in here, and there's a lot of those muted tones of color in this palette that are a little more digestible for people who don't want to go straight up in your face color. I also think that this would be a great palette for beginners, because a lot of the shadows in this palette do take a little bit of building up to get the opacity that you want in an eye look. I also think that this is a great palette for day to night looks. So not only, you know, every day to crazy sauce on the weekends, but also day looks that you can wear at work to really glamorous, smoky night looks that you can wear out to the club. I think this is a beautiful palette. I love the sentiments about it, you know, around the whole manifest, dream big, like affirmation type of sentiments around it. I mean, even the little page that comes to protect the shadows, it says manifest here, but all these little words around it are like affirmation words. So peace, visualize, secret, appreciate. I don't know what secret has to do with anything. Secret, appreciate, gratitude, vibe, a good day. Affirmation-y. And I think that we all kind of need a little bit of that these days, especially in this world that we're living in right now that's really chaotic. And we feel a little chaotic and we feel a little unkempt. But we're trying to affirm ourselves that we are doing fine. We are doing good, right? And that mental note. So with that said, I guess that's where I go with this palette is it looks really chaotic, right? It looks sign of the times, but it is actually a really pretty, beautiful palette. And I just think that it would suit just about anybody's needs because it's just so versatile. I do believe that it's versatile. I do think that this palette worked best with a primer. Any kind of primer. I used a dry primer. I also used a like more creamy primer. I don't think that those three cream shadows in here are the best shadows. I think that they need to work on their cream formula, but that's 3 out of 35 shadows. So I also, I guess when it comes down to it, don't like those pressed pigments. But even when I think through the lens of pressed pigments and those 3 shadows, that's only 9 shadows in this palette that I really don't like. If I was to put this into like a category, I would say that this is a really great baseline for matte shadows, but the rest of it is meh. The shimmers, they're pretty, but there's only, there's only 5 shimmers in this palette that I can use that don't irritate my eyes. This isn't a like shimmer palette formula for me that I absolutely love. It's lasted on my eyes for about a good, well, if I could make it 8 hours, because in a lot of my eye looks I was using those pressed pigments. If I could make it 8 hours, it lasted at least that long, but I found that I was often taking off my eye look, especially if I had used those pressed pigments way before that 8-hour mark, because it was driving my eyeballs nuts. I'm really glad that I spent the week working from home, doing touch bases and doing a lot of paperwork and prepping and planning for my regional visit this week, because otherwise I would have been out and about in my stores with my eyeball watering like a crazy person and the makeup driving me nuts. I didn't find any kind of problems when I was just solely using the mattes, even the darker mattes in here, like this blue on my eyes today is this matte here. It didn't bother my eyes. Even this red didn't bother my eyes. I would say that this red is one of the best like rusty browny reds that I have ever encountered in an eyeshadow palette. The mattes do feel a little more stiff in the pan and maybe grippy even. These stain. They are going to stain your fingers, these mattes. They're very, very, very pigmented and very, very pretty and blend very, very well. I didn't see any kind of voiding. I didn't see any kind of blending into one another issues. So they played well with each other and they played well with most of the other shadows in this palette. The 3 that did not play well with anything else in this palette are the ones that they've categorized as creams, which are also categorized as bases or toppers. I don't see me using those. So what I am going to do is say I would purchase this palette again, even with the shadows that I don't really like in this palette. I will be keeping it in my collection. I do love it. I do think it's very versatile and I love the mattes in this palette. I like it. I'll keep it. It's just I don't like it more than I like the Carnival 3. I would say if you're going to get a bPerfect eyeshadow palette, get one of the Carnival palettes. Those are stunning, beautiful, and I love how they performed if you're into color. Even if you're not into color, those Carnival palettes are also very versatile. So that's it. I'm gonna go pull my palette for next week and I will be right back. My leader is coming in to do store visits with me and meet the team and do some, give some feedback. And like, I always just really love my opportunities to spend time with my leadership, but what that means for me is I need makeup that's going to look good, makeup that's going to last all day, and makeup that's easy for me to use. And I really feel like this palette is where it's going to be. This is the Natasha Denona Zendo palette. and this is what it looks like inside. I feel like this is a really good, like, just everyday kind of palette. I do love that it's got these, you know, darker tones in here that I could kind of switch it up and get a little bit of crazy out of an eye look if I wanted to, but I also love that it's got like peaches and pinkies and orangey tones in it that are going to help me create looks that are going to look good with the wardrobe that I anticipate I'll be wearing this week. So that is what I am going after this week, and I am excited for it. This was a new palette this year and I haven't used it yet. So purchased it, I haven't used it yet. I've heard a lot of different takes on this palette on the YouTubes. Like, some people really love it, but some people also really hate it. I do know that it has one of her cream to powder formulas in it. I really liked that cream to powder formula in the Metropolis palette. But I do know that there's been a couple of her palettes that I have had the cream to powder formula that I wasn't super impressed with. I'm actually pretty excited to use this palette, and I am excited to come to you next week and talk about it, and I hope that you're also excited for that. If you are, please don't forget to subscribe to my channel, hit the notification bell so that it notifies you every single time I upload. I do upload content 4 times a week. Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and Sunday, and I wouldn't want you to miss anything. But with that said, if you've used the Dream Big Manifest palette by bPerfect, I would love to hear your thoughts down in the comments section. If there's something that I missed that you want to know about that I typically talk about, or you just want to know about and see if I have any thoughts on that, please put the question down in the comment section. I would love to have a conversation with you down there. Thank you guys so much for coming to my channel and watching me, spending some time with me today. I do appreciate all of you so very much. I hope that 2021 is treating you all kindly and that August has also been good to you. I hope that you and your family are healthy and safe and doing as best you can in this crazy world that we live in right now. And I hope that you all are loving each other, but loving each other from afar. And until next time, bye friends.